to commemorate the 100th anniversary of the end of the First World War and to celebrate all of our brave veterans, the orchestra and I will be performing Benjamin Britten's 1961 masterpiece, The War Requiem. Benjamin Britten wrote his War Requiem mostly in 1961 for the rededication of the Coventry cathedral, which had been bombed during the Second World War. This War Requiem is a very special piece. It's a setting of the standard Latin Requiem for the Dead, the Mass for the Dead, of which composers like Mozart and Verdi have written, and in fact influenced Britten quite a lot. But in addition to these old Latin texts, Britten also uses poetry of a British poet who actually fought during the First World War. And we're performing this piece in November of 2018 to commemorate not only the 100th anniversary of the Armistice of the First World War, but one of the great tragedies of this war was that the poet, Wilfred Owen, who wrote these English texts that Britten incorporates into this piece between the various parts of the Latin Requiem, Wilfred Owen was fighting in the First World War and was actually killed 1 week before the Armistice, 1 week before the end of the war. In fact, he passed away on November 4th, 1918, which is actually the date of the final of the 3 performances of the War Requiem. So we'll be celebrating his life as well. You know, it's really interesting the way that Britten put this piece together. You know, you think of a requiem as being orchestra and chorus and perhaps some vocal soloists. Well, there are indeed all of those things in this piece, but it's an even bigger spectacle than that. There is a full orchestra, for sure, but there is also a second orchestra, which is a chamber orchestra. The full orchestra works with the full chorus and the soprano soloist, mostly on the Latin Requiem material. But the chamber orchestra works with the tenor soloist and the baritone soloist on the settings of the English poems, the Wilfred Owen poems. And then, as though 2 orchestras and a chorus and 3 vocal soloists weren't enough, the piece also calls for a children's chorus and a portative organ. So you can see how involved a production this is, and to be very honest, why it doesn't get performed much more than it does. It requires enormous forces. So this really is a once-in-a-generation opportunity to see this really extraordinary masterpiece by one of the great composers of the 20th century, and to do it at a time in a way that commemorates the end of the Great War, that commemorates Wilfred Owen's contribution to poetry, and that also commemorates and celebrates our veterans.